morning, everyone. Buenos dias. It's always a pleasure to be in community with Evolución, with the amazing leaders of this organization, Edgar, Susana, and all the countless folks that have helped put together this amazing conference. My name is Rito Martinez, and I come from stolen land. That is Chicago, original inhabitants of the Potawatomi, the Great Lakes, the sacred waters. And it's a privilege and an honor to be in community with all of you. Not only is Chicago a place of stolen land, but it is a place that was built on stolen labor of both Black people and brown people, and it continues to thrive and grow based on that stolen labor. And so we want to acknowledge that and also just welcome all of you into this space. And wanted to start with just a small grounding. And I'll read this a couple of times. And so I'll ask you, as I'm reading this, to connect with your heart space, connect with your bodies, connect and listen and discern what these words are provoking and stirring in you. Behind you, the love of your ancestors. Before you, the trail to decolonization. Around you, the strength of your people. Within you, the light to heal. I'll read this again and invoke and invite all of our collective ancestors to also join us in this space. Behind you, the love of your ancestors. Before you, the trail to decolonization. Around you, the strength of your people. Within you, the light to heal. I'll read it one more time. Again, connect to your hearts, to your spirits, to your bodies. Listen to what is stirring inside of you as we gather in community. Behind you, the love of your ancestors. Before you, the trail to decolonization. Around you, the strength of your people. Within you, the light to heal. Let's take 30 seconds to sit still, connect with our bodies and ourselves as we begin and be in community. So I just want to start today by reminding us that we center our work, that we center our time in the beauty and the power and the resiliency of our collective community. We are a beautiful people. Look at the hope and promise and smiles of these beautiful children, beautiful community members. And this is why we're here. We are here to support, to love, to work with, to uncover, empower, to remember everything that is inherent to us. And what is inherent to us is our genius, our power, our dignity, our love, and our community. And we absolutely can do more than survive. And we acknowledge that these systems that we're operating are not designed for us and are designed to harm, to separate, to inflict injustice. And at the same time, we are not only that, we are much more than that. And so we center these images, look at the radiance of all of these beautiful people and these smiles, and our resiliency and our hope, and we don't despair. We know that we have always survived. We will always do more than just survive. Our ancestors have done it and will continue to guide us to do it as well. So let us center ourselves in exactly why we're doing this work, and in our community, in our strength, in our love. So we have 40 minutes to review some of this offering, this invitation. And I just want to acknowledge that we will probably have more questions and answers. Excuse me. And so there is power in not knowing the answer, and there is power of being in community and creating emergent spaces to discover and uncover those answers together. And that process is actually what is most important, because in that process, there is liberation, there is love, there is community, there is healing, and there is renewal. And so that's the invitation as well. All right, we're going to build some community with one another. And this presentation is structured in using the framework of the mirror and the window. The mirror is our ability to look inward, to do the work of self, to reflect on our condition, our heart, our spirits, our minds. The practice of self-reflection is absolutely critical to sustaining ourselves and doing this work. And then later on, we'll do a little bit of window work. But as we do some mirror work, there is a central question that I would love for you to answer. And we'll build community in answering this question. How is your heart this morning? What are you carrying in your body as a result of all of the inequity, need, and things that we witness that is impacting our students and our community? So how is your heart? What are you carrying in your body as a result of all of the inequity, need, and all the things that we witness that is impacting our students and our community? And so we're going to go into breakout rooms and to pairs of 2 and to dyads. Please either raise your hand or come off camera to let us know if you're able to join a breakout room or if you're not able to join a breakout room. I know we have an iPhone, and if not, we could just do this all in community as well. And so, Catalina, let's see. Why don't we trying to see who's on the room. Zaria, Anissa, Rios, are all of you able to join a breakout room? If you could come on camera.
I have a toddler who's also watching her show, so it may be a bit challenging to focus, but
Okay. Good morning, Anissa. Okay, great. Why don't we just do this together? Let's just come on camera, unmute ourselves, and just share. How is our heart this morning? Where are we this morning? What are we carrying from the work that we are doing? You could say your name, where you're located, and how you're doing this morning. So again, I'm Rito Martinez from Chicago. And my heart is both really feeling a tremendous amount of gratitude. I've had a couple of days where I've been in community with others doing the work of equity and love and healing that has been extremely affirming. And our heart is also tired as I've been guiding my 2 teenage sons who have had mental health crises recently. And so I'm feeling really grateful and a little bit tired in terms of the work that we are witnessing and doing together. Imani, how's your heart?
You know, I'm going to be really honest and admit that I still am going through the process of healing after the tragedy that happened at the school in Uvalde, Texas. That hit me particularly hard because Latinx children were targeted. And so many of them were casualties. And the school that I have been working in, the classrooms have a glass front. So there's nowhere to hide in the classroom. And the windows do not open, so you can't crawl out of the window. And it's almost like PTSD, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I'll be in class and I'll be doing fine. And all of a sudden, I'll just get this feeling of panic. And not just for me, but it's like, how am I going to keep these kids safe, physically safe? So I'm still going through that process. It hit me particularly hard.
Thank you, Imani. Thank you so much for sharing. Anisa, Sadia, Mr. Rios, there's an invitation to share.
Kind of like what you mentioned earlier, just grateful with, for me, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. Grateful where I'm at and with our school community, you know, with the support, as much support as we try to give them and that they have, and just being in place and trying to give a safe environment where they can learn.
Great, thank you so much.
I'm Nessa Parr Grooms from Kansas City. I'm not an educator in the classroom, but recently accepted a position in resource development for an early childhood education center. And I'm also an early childhood education advocate, just through my own journey of seeing that there's not an abundance of quality and affordable options. And I have a 2.5-year-old. So that's why I'm here virtually versus in person. In a few more years, she'll probably just be there with me. So I'm just very grateful for the position I'm in to be able to honor my passion and advocacy work and my day job as well.
Great, thank you, Nissa. Welcome, welcome. Zaria, how's your heart this morning?
Hi, can you all see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm Zaria. I'm in Tennessee. I am actually a pre-service teacher, currently doing my internship at a local elementary school. And I've been sitting up here trying to figure out how I feel exactly. I can't really pinpoint it. But I would have to agree that I am very grateful that I am able to be in this space that I am and to go into the career that I am going into, and hopeful that there will be change in the future and more support for all of our students.
Great, thank you so much, Zaria. Welcome. Catalina, how's your heart this morning? You're on mute, Catalina.
You're still on mute.
Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yes, yay.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Rito. So I'm Catalina, and my heart today it's feeling happy to be here with you all and to be part of this amazing opportunity. This is my first year working with the organization for Evolución, and also our first year doing hybrid. So it's exciting. But my heart is hurting at the same time for those affected by Hurricane Ian at the time. It's very disheartening to see everything that's going on and all the destruction that it's created. But I also try to look at the positive as well, as it's a time for the community to come together and work together to rebuild and to create and yeah, just pretty much to come together and start rebuilding a community but also just also to remind us to be grateful for what we have too, and also for the opportunities such as this one. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Catalina, and thank you for all your help and support in running tech and everything else. So thank you so much. Okay. Again, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's always critically important to share from the heart space, to do a check-in, to do that mirror work focused on self, and self-reflection. It's a critical element and component of sustaining the work that we all collectively do. So just a couple of reminders. I just want to center us on some key reminders and key practices that I often lean on in doing this complex and sometimes overwhelming work. The first one is this practice of being able to pause, this practice of being able to practice, have a practice of self-reflection, and not only having a practice of self-reflection individually, but also having a practice of self-reflection in community, and the importance of how that both engenders connection, builds relationships, and breaks the isolation that is designed within these systems that we're operating. And so, again, an offering and the reminder as we collectively do this work. And two, this work has to be sustainable. We are seeing all of the data of all the teacher shortages and how the issue, the profession of education, nonprofit development, community organizing, early childhood is not sustainable. And there's so much burnout. People are leaving this type of work. People are not even thinking or considering this type of work. And so we must recreate this. We must reimagine this. We must have radical imagination to see how this can look different, exist differently, remove it from the current systems that exist currently, and really make it sustainable. Because our communities will continue to need these types of spaces, services, educational opportunities, access, for their own well-being. And so we have to make this work sustainable. And then another truth that is so critical that we must constantly remind ourselves is that our students in our community have resource. They do not need saving. They have inherently, based on who they are, inherently are born with resource, are born with wisdom, are born with intuition, are born with discernment, are born with their own genius to survive. We have always survived. Our ancestors have survived. And so knowing and relying and always seeing our community through an asset-based perspective, not a deficit-based perspective. We focus so much, the system focuses on so much of what we don't have, and we completely miss what we do have. And so constantly reminding ourselves that our communities, our families, our students have resource, and they do not need saving. They need access and support. And what they really need is the truth of exactly what we could possibly do, and love and connection and relationship. And after all of that, then will continue to survive and thrive. I think a lot of our personal stories have a semblance of that, exactly, of that notion. So again, another reminder to always anchor this work through an asset-based perspective, and a reminder that our communities have resource. And lastly, the commitment that I've been learning to have from being a classroom teacher to being a founding high school principal to the continued work that I have is this motto, not at the expense of our own well-being. In my 12 years as a high school teacher and my 6 years as a founding principal, and in my 10 years and doing leadership development and equity work, healing work, never have I heard a community member, a parent, a student say yes, we want you to do this work and we want you to harm yourself and burn out and completely drive yourself into the ground and sacrifice your own family and your own well-being to help us. Never have I heard anybody mention that. Our community loves us. Our community and our students love us. And so we must operate and do this work never at the expense of our own well-being. This notion of sacrificing and grinding and giving things up as an equation of doing real transformative work is flawed. And it's designed to not make it sustainable, and it's designed to continue to uphold the systems that we navigate. And so never at the expense of our well-being should be a model that we carry and a model that we are conscious about and share and exist and do this work. So those are invitations and reminders to really ground ourselves in doing this work in this way and in community as we continue to serve our families, our students. And again, this is all part of the mirror work, of the work of self-reflection, the work of self as we're navigating the complexity of what we do. Okay, now some window work. And so this is the invitation around an ecosystems lens to the complexity of exactly what we are seeing as educators. As a high school teacher, I really took a organizing perspective in the work that I was doing at the high school that I was in. And so I taught high school, I taught Chicano Latino studies, I developed a ethnic studies course, and I also did a lot of organizing in the community that I was teaching in through local nonprofits, because the issues of the school, lack of representation, lack of bilingual ESL services, lack of health care, lack of resources, lack of parent engagement, lack of even just basic translation services, all those things were not present. And so I knew I needed a much more comprehensive approach. When I was founding principal of Social Justice High School, which is a school in Chicago that was birthed from a 19-day hunger strike in La Villita in Chicago, the neighborhood that I grew up in, and was the founding principal of that, I knew that the complexity, the inequity, the injustice, the harm that we were going to navigate as a school was significant. And I knew that that is not something as a principal that I could do alone. And so this is the process of what we collectively designed. Again, an ecosystems lens. Ecosystem means what are all the things around you in the system around you that you could also share and hold accountable to the inequity and the harm that our students are bringing inside the schoolhouse. Schools have become manifestations, places where all the social inequities, all the social injustice, all of the harm are manifested through the lives of the little people, of students who walk in that door. And we are attempting to engage them in learning. But we know that they can't learn if their basic needs are being met, if they have trauma that they're struggling with, if there is food insecurity, housing insecurity, if there's complete lack of resources. And so now the school has become the place that all of this is manifesting, all of these issues, and it's completely overwhelming because we know that we cannot possibly address all of these. And so schools have become these places, and they're not designed to be complete wraparound support, social service / education / mental health / housing / food insecurity places. They're not designed that way. And so if they're not designed that way, we have to be really clear what schools can actually do. We have to be really clear on exactly how and what we could possibly do to support, to love, and to be in community with our students and our parents that are part of our community. And so in my work, I learned that, yes, we are facing all of those things in a school. And as principals and administrators and as teachers, our job is to look externally and hold other institutions accountable for those same problems and invite them in to create those solutions along with our parents and our students. And so that is the ecosystems approach to collective responsibility to address systemic inequity that we are seeing manifested within all of our students and their parents in their community. And so the next point is we have to hold the district office accountable. As school administrators, we have to say, all right, what are district services and resources that are not being equitably distributed across the entire district to support the complexity of the inequities and the harm and the trauma that students are facing? How can we use parents and parent organizing to also demand more resources from district offices, from state, from whatever municipality in terms of the lack of resources that we need, again, to address these complex problems and these complex issues. Next is how do we invite community-based organizations into this work, right? How is Evolución partnering with schools? How are schools partnering with other community-based nonprofits like the Guadalupe Center? How are we inviting community-based organizations into the school to do this collective work together? How are we able to access and organize resources that are more comprehensive in partnerships with those in our community? And so part of it is being able to do a resource map. And at the end, you'll see my resource map of how we could possibly do this work. And so you'll be invited to also reflect and do your own resource map as well. Public transit is critical to this work. One of the issues when I was a principal is we had students being harmed by youth violence on the way to school and on the way home. So the bus transportation system, public transit, dropped off students 6 blocks from the bus terminal to our school. And then in that 6-block walk from the bus terminal to the high school, we would have students gravely injured by gang violence. And so public transit was critical in addressing some of those issues. And so public transit and public safety are critical elements and components, again, to solve these complex issues. How are we engaging public transit in some of these inequities and harms? And how are we inviting them to create solutions as well? City elected officials have to be invited into the school. They absolutely have to see firsthand the complexities of what schools are actually dealing with. And so my job as a high school principal was to form those accountable relationships with elected officials, especially those that were a part of my high school community. The alderman, the state senator, the state representative, they knew me by name. I had their phone numbers. They were constantly invited to take collective responsibility for everything that we were experiencing in terms of inequity and harm, all of the needs of our families and our students. I was constantly reminding them this is their responsibility as well as elected officials. And so again, it has to be a comprehensive approach. And we can't absolutely, as a school or a school building or administrators or teachers, think that we are able to support and address all of this need. Public safety, as much of an abolitionist as I am, my relationship with the commander, the police district in my school was critical. Those relationships were absolutely critical and very difficult to manage, because I did not want the response to be just locking a bunch of young people up. That was not the response that I was looking for, but also the need to hold them accountable to actually do the job in a much more comprehensive way. And so they were not let off the hook in as we dealt with, again, inequities, issues of violence, issues of safety in our community. That was a part of our high school. And the secret resource, the secret weapon, the special sauce, if you will, is students and families themselves. If we are seeing our students and families with resource, and if we are seeing our students and families from an asset-based perspective, that they have knowledge, they have skills, they have intuition, they have lived experience, how are we engaging them in these complex issues, in these complex problems, and how we are engaging them in building community? And so really prioritizing parent engagement, parent organizing, parent education, and really asking parents to support and address and help define what their needs are, and also what some of those solutions are. And so again, we must not think of the school as a single focal point in addressing all the inequity and harm that our students are bringing. We must think about this in a much more comprehensive way around what is a much more of a systems approach to address systemic inequity, and how can we invite, demand, push a much more comprehensive approach, a comprehensive responsibility, collective responsibility to really address all of the needs that our families have in our communities. So that is absolutely critical. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any thoughts, questions, reflections, and how this applies to some of your work that you are collectively doing.
I have a reflection.
Yes, Imani.
I am actually trying to be a resource for the community. I am the director of a STEM nonprofit, and we want the students to be able to get exposure to a lot of the state-of-the-art technology that maybe they are getting out in the suburbs that kids in the inner city at Title I schools are not exposed to. And I have a question in terms of how to make this wheelhouse a cultural norm. I think a lot of the parents have sort of a hands-off approach, to the schools. The teachers are the professionals. We don't want to come in and try to tell the teachers, what to teach. And then on the other hand, you've got groups who are trying to make political traction, who are telling the teachers, what they can and cannot teach. So how do we make this mobilization of all of these community entities that advocate for the children? How do we mobilize them to meet those common goals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would start with identifying 2 or 3 from each one of those groups and asking them that same question, because those in the context, those in the circles and in the communities that you are operating have a very unique perspective, have a very unique context. And I think gathering them, building relationships, building connection, and having them solve that question, the process of them even solving that question can really then generate this approach. So I think that would be the way that I would offer from my experience. Sometimes it's not knowing sometimes what's more important is not knowing the answer, but is knowing the right question. And I think Imani, you have a really good question that engaging others to actually addressing and figuring out together and building community can be a really powerful way to then create a collective responsibility approach like this wheel here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's extremely helpful and very encouraging.
Great. Thank you, Lenny. Other thoughts, other wonderings around this approach? You could also use the chat to type something in.
And this is Joel, but I kind of like how that's broken down. It's just not parts. It's, I think we all know it. It's the whole. The whole. It involves everyone and everything in and outside of the community as well. So I like the way that you've broken that down into.
Thanks, Joe. Joe, I'm going to ask you what's missing, right? This was true for my context, but I think there are other things that are missing, and there's actually one thing that I actually left out that we could problem solve, because I think these are just sort of big arching sort of entities that again a school can invite in and cultivate relationships to do this comprehensive approach. But what's missing? There's also things here that could be missing, both in your context and or something else that we're forgetting.
Just thinking off what you said, we as teachers are not in there. So
great. Yeah. So teachers,
supporters,
union,
not only
union,
teachers, staff,
yeah.
support. So
excellent. That's a great observation, Joe. Thank you.
I have one thing
Yes,
that I
Imani.
see, and this has been my feeling for a long time, is that my community, Kansas City in particular, is experiencing a mental health crisis. And it existed before COVID, but I think COVID kind of exacerbated it. The record number of murders that we have in our city. And I think a lot of people don't realize those things don't happen in a vacuum. The children are actually seeing this happen. I had a child in the 4th grade who developed a stutter, and getting to know his mother, I found out he actually saw his parent, his father, murdered. And he developed a stutter behind that. He got no mental health assistance whatsoever. And I think that, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the fact that in Kansas City, our student population has a 40% mobility rate. That was before COVID, which means these students have more than one address per year, which means that they may not be sleeping on the street, but they're couch surfing, they're sleeping in cars, and no one's really addressing how this is affecting the children. So I think the health community, particularly the mental health community, is missing from the equation.
Great. Thank you so much, Imani. That's a great addition. Anybody else? Anissa, Zaria, Catalina? One of the ones that I left off was faith-based organizations, churches. Churches were critical for me in doing this work, both the Catholic parishes in our community. Those were really powerful to communicate and invite parents out to school events. I would go, staff members would go, develop relationships with the priests of these local parishes. They would allow us to make announcements from the pew at the end of Mass. And it was a great way of outreach and resource, and also seeing us in the community. And also, evangelical organizations as well. And so it was not just to Catholic churches, but also Protestant churches as well. We had wonderful partnerships in the African American community with Baptist churches, and would have parent meetings there as well. And so I think we oftentimes forget about the power of our faith-based community, faith-based churches in doing this work. So mental health, parents, teachers, support personnel, and mental health facilities, and faith-based organizations as well. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping up. So I'm going to leave you with this beautiful, beautiful quote from one of my sheroes, Adrienne Marie Brown. A spell to cast upon meeting a stranger, a comrade or friend, working for social and or environmental justice and liberation, which means these are all of you. And so this is a greeting as we conclude our work. As you are a miracle walking, I greet you with wonder in a world which seeks to own your joy and your imagination. You have chosen to be free every day as I practice. I could never know the struggles you went through to get here, but I know you have swum upstream, and at times it has been lonely. I want you to know I honor the choices you made in solitude, and I honor the work you have done to belong. I honor your commitment, that which is larger than yourself, and your journey to love the particular container of life that is you. You are enough. Your work is enough. You are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here, and I am grateful. So I am grateful for all of you who are doing this work on behalf of our students and our communities. Thank you so much for this time together, and really, really appreciate all of you and your collective work. We'll have time for just a couple of other questions, general questions, reflections before we conclude. I think we have about 3 or 4 more minutes left.
Rito, I have a question.
Yes.
Have you written a book on best practices and your experience? I mean, I was amazed to hear about a social justice high school. I want to hear the story behind that. If you have a book that you can recommend?
Yeah, so there's a book, I'll put it in the chat. The title is Born Out of Struggle. It's the model I created for the school, and it's by Dr. David Stovall. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with his research and his book, but he wrote this book. He was one of the on the design team of Social Justice High School. He's a dear friend of mine, but he documented the whole struggle of both the hunger strike and the creation of Social Justice High School, and all of the principles that informed our collective work. And so it's a beautiful book of accounting all of the work that we were able to do. Also proud to say at the event that I was in this past Friday, there were students there still leading social justice work in a really powerful way, even though I've been away for about 10 years now from the school. And so the values and the mission and vision of the school is still informing the liberation and activism of young people there. And it was so heartwarming and powerful to see.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely, Imani.
can I have you put the name of that book in the chat so everyone can copy that and look it up?
I just did.
Okay, wonderful. Born Out of Struggle by Dr. David Stovall. Any other questions, reflections, or comments that you want to make to Rito?
Does the school, does it fall under the umbrella of the Chicago Public Systems, or is
Yes.
it you? Okay.
Yeah, you
mentioned
could
it was
find
a
it.
charter, but yeah.
No, it's a public school, Little Village High School. It's with for social justice. You could Google it, and it's there's 4 small schools in the campus, and they were all connected to the 19-day hunger strike. So I think this should be their 15th year in existence. But it was a powerful journey and struggle to create those schools, all driven by the power of the community.
I'm actually typing this up and I'm going to put it on the Jamboard. So if you didn't have a chance to write it down, I'm going to put this on the Jamboard.
Great, thank you so much, Imani.
Absolutely. Any other questions or reflections? Well, I just want to say, Rito, Martinez, thank you so much for your wisdom and your insight and your experience. I mean, I didn't know that there was a social justice high school that existed until I came to this breakout session. So thank you so much for your courage and your commitment to education. And thank you to all of you for attending Evolución and for attending this breakout session with Rito. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Much love to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone.